From the heart of Appalachia, located under a shopping mall near the city that moves mountains, you're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose and Dirty Dan.
Hello everyone, I'm Goose, and welcome to Here to Chew Bubblegum. With us being on break and returning on May 1st, this week we present a special episode of Here to Chew Bubblegum and showcase one of my favorite guests. And our opening music this week is a little bit different. That was Stone 11 with Better Man from the Basement Sessions. I first heard about Stone 11 in 2006, back on MySpace, and actually opened up for those guys a few times doing stand-up comedy. The following show features the one and only Justin Perkins. These are some of my favorite Justin Perkins moments. Justin is an author, and he has written such books as Co-Kingdom, Creating the Perfect Slave, The Boy with Super Hearing, and Everyone is Different, Just Like Me, which he co-written with his son and number one fan, Ryder Perkins. Along with being an author, Justin is the host of two successful podcasts, TalkJunkie and Retro Cult. He's also the creator of Believe It or Not, which I'm blessed enough to be a part of and co-host. A little background on Justin. He was born and raised in Eastern Kentucky. He's a talented musician, and I've said in the past that when Justin speaks, he reminds me of an old man sitting on a front porch whittling a stick. At times, I've been asked what I've meant by that. I simply mean he's wise, and when he speaks, you need to listen. I'm blessed enough that I've got to know Justin through the show and have become very good friends with him. In fact, I consider him one of my best friends. Let's travel back now to April 25th, 2001, to episode 26, which I believe may have been Justin's first time on the show.
Hello.
Hello, is this Justin?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Justin, this is Goose. You're on Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose and my chubby little friend, Cronkite.
Why you got to say chubby? Just because I called you Feather don't mean you got to call me chubby.
Well, hey, man.
Hi, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's good to talk to you guys. How you guys doing today?
We are doing good. We are doing good. Somebody has to go out of town, so we're recording a bunch of shows today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a hint.
Well.
I will give you a hint. It's not me that has to go out of town.
It's Elliot. He's going to go back to the future.
It's not Elliot. See, I keep my priorities straight. We always record the show. But for those of you that don't know Justin, I've been talking about Justin for the last couple of weeks. Justin has a podcast, TalkJunkie, that you can hear on Anchor, Spotify. I listen to him on Anchor. We actually recorded the message finally and sent it to you probably 20 minutes ago. Hopefully that turned out okay.
Okay.
Now,
I had a little trouble with that part of the app here lately, but I switched to Anchor not too long back, and podcasting wise, it gave me a lot of options that some of the other platforms hadn't really given me.
Yeah, no, that's the one that we've used ever since we've started, and I even talked about you in the last show a little bit. I was going to message and give you a heads up on that, but I was telling Cronkite that you may be a little skeptic about UFOs and aliens and government conspiracies in regards to UFOs or Roswell. Did I guess that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Told you.
I spent most of my life an adamant, obsessed believer. As a child, I remember getting my first computer as a child, and I would write my own newspaper every week and print it out and hand it out to the old man in my grandpa's store about aliens and hauntings and ghosts. I was obsessed to the point it pretty well consumed me, especially research-wise. And I just got to a point on the ghost end of it, I never found anything that even remotely led me in. On the alien side of it, I'm a very adamant believer that there's life on other planets, definitely intelligent life, and I'm not completely opposed to the fact that they've been here. And I think a lot of recent events have really started to shift me more back towards that. Okay, you know, when the government's even coming out and going, all right, look, we can't explain it. What do you want us to do about it?
Right.
So, you know, that's something definitely worth looking at. And Roswell, I don't believe Roswell was a weather balloon. I don't know what it was. I know you guys often, in any type of conversation involving aliens or any type of advanced technology, for whatever reasons, the Nazis always come up. So, you know,
yes, they do.
Theories about them regarding Roswell.
Well, you know, when we first started diving into some of the advanced technology in World War II, you know, we actually felt bad because it seemed like, and Cronkite, you join in here, we were talking about Nazis a lot. And,
yeah, I mean, it was,
you know, and it's not that we're a fan of Nazis. We're not. They're bad. They're wrong. You know.
Yeah, and it was to the point where we actually had to step back and say, you know, we realize we talk about Nazis a lot. We are not Nazis. We do not like Nazis.
Yeah.
But
I've since starting listening to you guys' show, I've somewhat become obsessed with it. I've said, and spent a long time on the road, a long time out of town. I'm almost completely caught up with all your guys' episodes, and I don't think in any way you guys glorify me. It's just an unavoidable topic because, you know, and then we look, Werner von Braun ran NASA.
Yes, he did.
The United States government doesn't go to the moon more than likely without Werner von Braun. So, you know, the United States has a long torrid history with a lot of these Nazis and a lot of Nazi scientists, people that done very bad things. And I think it's important to mention their role, if nothing else, to say, hey, you know, somehow these people made it out without prosecution, you know, for one thing. But I don't feel you guys ever glorified it. I think it's just in that field of discussion and study, it's an inevitable topic.
Yeah, and I mean, some of their technology still, I mean, holds up to where we're at today in technology.
Yeah, and NASA for a while was littered with Nazis. I mean, it was just every scientist you looked at came out of that area.
No doubt, and you know, it's one of those ugly truths of history. But I think it's important to look at because you know you really can't discuss it without doing so.
Right. Well, what do you think about last week's government issued photos and videos where they basically said these are real, they're unknowns? You know, you had 3 different ones. You had a metallic like blimp. You had the
acorn.
You had the acorn, and then
like a pyramid.
Yeah, like a pyramid. What's your thoughts on those?
I've heard about the dump of stuff, and actually I heard there were some videos possibly with it.
Yes, they are.
In the middle of nowhere, literally with no service 90% of the time. So I have not seen any of that. It is something that I'm definitely going to check out, and I'm highly anticipating what's supposedly going to be the full release. What got stuck in with that COVID deal. Yeah. And it's supposed to come out. I worry about all this stuff they're kind of putting out right now and them getting to that date and it really not being a big show, them just kind of going, okay, because we're expecting the federal government to tell the intelligence agencies what they're going to do, and that's really not the way that works. I know people would like to assume it is and would like to hope that it is, that somebody in Washington has control over these agencies, but they don't. And so it does worry me. They keep releasing stuff, or there is the distinct possibility that releasing these things is a way to kind of soften the blow of what they are actually going to release.
And that's exactly what we said on last week's show. It was kind of a soft opening, you know, that in April of 2020 they put out those videos, and then like a year later they put out, you know, the new videos. And, you know, they're just trying to prepare people and softening the blow.
Well, yeah. And, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I totally agree with what you say there as far as these intelligence agencies. We act like these, you know, that our elected officials tell them what to do. And to a certain extent, that's true. But when it comes to the really secretive part of the universe or the world or whatever's happening, the intelligence of national security, blah blah blah, whatever they want to hide behind, they're not going to listen to a bunch of civilians that were elected.
No. And you look, the most important thing to government officials, for the most part, is money. Now,
Exactly.
we're still waiting since September 10th, 2001. We're still waiting to see what happened to that $1 trillion that Rumsfeld couldn't find. That went into black operations, and that's been a long time ago. We've heard nothing about that since then. They don't have as much control as I would like for them to have. To be honest with you, I'd like for them to be in check. But another thing kind of confused me about them releasing all this at once. I really started thinking about it, especially when the whole COVID bill announcement came out. And, why now and why this? And there's the obvious option of maybe something's coming that they're not going to be able to control, and it's easier to ease us into that process. But also, look at what they're releasing right now and what they're admitting themselves, and there's really not a lot of public reaction or a lot of public attention. I think maybe they've gotten to a point with social media and saturation in movies and things like that to where it's kind of dulled people. You've become maybe somewhat accustomed to these notions, and it's a little easier to let that stuff out.
Yes, they've definitely been desensitized. Now, let me ask you a question, Justin. If you, if for some reason the, daggone it, I forgot it again. I'm sorry. Come back to me. I'll figure.
Let me ask you a question, Justin. What size shoes do you wear?
I had it.
It's dependent on sneaker to boot, but generally somewhere between a 9.5 and a 10.
Okay.
I'm a small-footed man.
Yeah. Was that your question, Cronkite?
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No. But we're happy to have you on the show with us. We definitely want you on the Roundtable show. That will be maybe, and I'll shoot you some dates offline, or when we get off here later on, and we will get that planned out. But we definitely want to have you in for our Roundtable shows.
Well, I would very much like to have you guys on my show, and I know I don't have as distinct schedule as you guys. I actually kind of listening to you guys in a little situation that was losing a friend kind of got me motivated to get back in. I'd been a little while off of podcasting, but that's the advantage of the Anchor app. Maybe we could try out this new technology. There's no reason for me jumping to Anchor, where we do the Facebook voice calls and kind of link up.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you guys on.
Yeah, you just definitely let us know, and we will definitely be on. And I am a procrastinator when it comes to updating the website. But when I do update it, you will have your own section on our website, and I may even put up a picture of you if you don't care that you send me, and I'll put a link to your Anchor show and Spotify page and everything. So
I'll give you an interesting little tidbit. If you actually go on Apple Podcasts and you search for the show Tinfoil Skeptic, that is my podcast.
Okay.
It just never took off.
Okay.
For the reason that I couldn't find anyone that had any interest in paranormal and UFOs and the occult, and especially government conspiracies. I love government conspiracies. I am a deep lover, unlike yourself, of the simulation theory. Not because I believe in it, I just love it. But I love the idea of getting to talk to you guys and be, in any way to get to experience being part of a show like this for an episode or so, because it really hits more into what I enjoy. My podcast, for people that want to listen to it, really is, I always looked at it as a thought exercise.
Right.
When I published my first book is when I really started doing the podcast, because for the most part, I've done 4 books. 2 of those have been poetry books, and I don't get to get out all the ideas kind of that's in my head with that, and I don't get to long-form look at a subject. So with the podcast, I can kind of look at a subject. The last podcast was over free speech, and I can look at it and kind of look at how my thoughts have changed over the years and how I really feel about certain things. And so it's a different thing than it's not what I set out to do at all. The original incarnation of my podcast was four gentlemen, including myself, sitting down and just talking movies and whatever, old school wrestling, just anything that we enjoyed. And schedules, I really admire the fact that you guys do your show the way you do it and as well as you do it, and work together with all the other outside interaction with Ned and all these guys, because that's hard to achieve, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I don't think people really realize that, and I was never able to really get that kind of going myself because I don't have a lot of people interested in podcasting.
Right.
Amazingly, as much as I love to talk, it's hard to find other people that do.
Yeah. Well, and thank you very much for the kind words. And I'm going to be honest with you. Listening to your podcast and the things that you talk about versus what we talk about, yours is, it makes me feel stupid sometimes listening to yours. Because you're like on a whole nother level. And yours is so good, and it really stops and makes you think, and, my hat's off to you. I'm an avid listener to your podcast, and I've listened to probably more than half of your shows, and,
definitely, yes.
I truly appreciate that. Two of my favorite podcasts, and this is not because I'm speaking with you guys. I've been telling you this privately since I first listened to it, and if it hadn't been for me doing another podcast, I would have not heard about your podcast. But two of my favorite podcasts that I really listen to right now is your guys' podcast and a podcast called Down on the Holler. It's another group of people from here in Knott County, a guy I went to school with and his younger brother, and those are probably two of my favorite podcasts. And I don't think it's just because I'm from Appalachia or from Eastern Kentucky. I believe that people from this area are really going to excel at this medium, because if you look at how kind of separated Eastern Kentucky was from the rest of the world for all those generations, that's where we get our dialect from, our traditions. And at one point in time, there was a settler, and I can't remember the date or the name, who said it's probably harder to make it through the hills and survive in Eastern Kentucky than it was to go west. So we were a very isolated people, and the internet age changed that, and I think podcasting's changed that. I think mountain people, no matter what the genre, it doesn't have to be about mountain topics, have a lot to say and are really good at expressing themselves. And I think that's why people like you and the guys at Down on the Holler are really good at that, because I think mountain people finally have a way to have a voice, and I think they have an exceptional voice.
Well, thank you very much, Justin, and I totally agree with you. Did you think of your question, Cronkite?
I've been racking my brain. It was UFO related, but I was going to ask him because you said he was a skeptic, so I was going to ask him something along those lines. It was about a sighting maybe we had had.
Was it the one in Pikeville in 2012?
It may have been. Possibly, I don't know. I don't have that sighting in front of me, so
he does wear a 9.5, 10 shoe size, so you can definitely.
Well, in regards to that sighting, what was the official? Some type of balloon?
It was
an internet balloon, which we really don't believe.
No. In all honesty, there's three possibilities there. There is a UFO of alien origin,
right,
which I don't rule out. There's the possibility of a government craft, which in regards to that particular situation is not something you could rule out. You look at the Tic Tac, I think you rule out government. At that point, you really got to go kind of towards extraterrestrial. I mean, there's the possibility of manipulated footage, but Lieutenant Fravor just doesn't seem like the type of individual that's going to be part of something like that, because there's not a lot for him to gain from that. And then, you've got the government backing his story on top of that, so I really don't see that as being an issue there. But as far as the third option, impactful, is a natural phenomenon, and, I don't really see what you put in that. But the one thing for sure, I think the only thing you say definitively about the case in Pikeville is it's not a weather balloon.
No, it was not a weather balloon. Yeah, an internet balloon.
I got my question.
Okay.
So, and it reminded me of this because that was my question was, all right, so right now, especially since coronavirus, sightings are up.
Yes.
UFO sightings are up. And my question to you, Justin, is do you think that that's because of people are just bored and are looking at the sky, or do you think it's because everyone has a cell phone that actually can take a fairly decent picture now, or is it there are more sightings happening?
That's hard, and the way I would really have to look at that would be kind of analytically break that down. What region are they coming from? What and socioeconomic issues come into play there as well, because all those things kind of influence what type of sightings you generally have. And I don't think there is a psychiatrist or a therapist in the country right now would say that coronavirus didn't have a definite psychological impact on people. Now, that's not to say that I'm sitting here saying, oh, these are imagined or thought of. Maybe it opened people up to be more reflective and more observant and to kind of look at things in a different light. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who have seen things that are well beyond explanation. But to that person, it doesn't trigger anything or doesn't really engage them because they don't have that aspect of their personality kind of opened up. They're a closed-off person. They're a narrow-minded person. But there's also the possibility that it really is a large increase in sightings because there's a large increase in activity, and that may dictate why the government seems to be so willing to put forth this information. And the one thing about the government being willing to put forth the information and this increased activity that does worry me is you look at something like the speech that Reagan gave, maybe what we all really need is an enemy outside of this world to unite us globally. And, maybe that's a thought process. I don't think most government officials in most countries are that unified or happy-go-lucky that they want world peace. There's a lot of profit and war, but maybe it has an ulterior motive somewhat similar to that.
Now, going back to the Reagan speech about that is Stephen Greer actually did the documentary that said that we have the technology right now to fake an alien invasion. Our government has the technology to fake a worldwide alien invasion, which makes me wonder if maybe that was talk in the 80s.
Back in the 80s?
Well, Star Wars, that very easily could have been a part of the Star Wars initiative. There were a lot of black op and black budget things associated with that Star Wars defense project. It very possibly could be something that's derived down and made it down from that. In regards to having the ability, look at what Orson Welles was able to do with an H.G. Wells book and a radio play.
Good point.
Yeah.
Psychological is 90% of that. We definitely have the technology. Imagine, I don't know what year we actually got the SR-71 Blackbird. I know in the 70s it was in use, but I don't know what year we actually got it. But let's say, based on the way that we get released to things like Stealth Fighter and things like that, there's the possibility they had this thing in 55. You just land an SR-70, was it 71 or 75?
71.
Blackbird. You land it on an airstrip and get some guys in some weird suits hop out of that in 55. Imagine what kind of panic you could spread with that. Imagine what they've got now.
Yeah.
Imagine, let's say they've got something even remotely similar to the Nazi Bell functional, and you've got the best of prosthetic makeup artists from Hollywood. Very easily, and I've always heard with that the possibility of using AI kind of combatants to fight against was an idea of this fake invasion.
It's a terrifying thought process.
Yeah, it's very, very terrifying. And Justin, I know you're busy. We didn't pre-plan this. This was a spur of the moment, and I don't want to hold you on here. But I do, before you go, want to thank you very much for letting us call you and putting you on the show today. And definitely, keep your Sundays open in May. When we do our roundtable, we would love to have you come by Bunker Studios.
Booker.
I didn't say Booker. Bunker Studios, and sit in on a roundtable with myself, Cronkite, Elliot, and Justin. So
it's going to be a good time.
I would definitely make any arrangement I could to make that possible with you guys, and I truly appreciate you guys having me on here.
Well, thank you very much, Justin, and you have a good afternoon, sir.
You too.
And that was Justin Perkins with TalkJunkie on Here to Chew Bubblegum. Justin's a very smart guy.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you listen to TalkJunkie, and I'm serious. He says stuff that makes you think, and no matter what he's talking about, it makes you think. Mm-hmm. And then I listen to our show, and the stuff we're talking about, and I'm like, man, I feel kind of stupid.
Halfway through, and I'm like, I got a question for you that I forget.
Yeah. Well, see, you are stupid. So.
I was like, I got a question for you, Justin, and then, no, I don't.
Never mind. So, this next clip is from episode 61 from January 2nd, 2022.
And I have a question for all of us.
Okay.
Now that 2021 is over, and Justin, we'll start with you because you're the guest. What did you learn from 2021?
People are really gullible, and the news is still really bad. It's the same lesson I've been learning for about 3 years.
To do in 2022 that's going to make it better for you, and what's a goal you have for that for this year?
I think the biggest thing for me personally and what we're doing here, not only with like the flock aspect of it and the spiritual journey, but the biggest piece that I have been waiting what feels like forever for is to finally start this business and to have my animals on my property and get my horses here and really get back into riding and raising animals and rescuing. So that's my thing. Get my animals here.
There you go.
Hey, Goose, say hi to TikTok Live on Here to Chew Bubblegum.
Hello, TikTok Live on Here to Chew Bubblegum. I'm Goose. Justin?
And the one thing that I'm proud of is
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, a goal?
Yes, a goal.
Well, that was my goal. Okay.
Well,
But your goal will make it better.
There you go. Justin, same question.
First of all, when you get the horses in, I want to come down.
Okay.
I've been with horses my whole life. We've never had a time that we've not until the last couple of years. I've had to work on the road, and I think you would agree with me that working with horses in particular, like I like dogs, like all animals, but horses are a different experience. There's a different connection there that I don't know. Like I've never not had a smile on my face messing with a horse. But as far as what I need in 2022, human connection more than anything. Like, I was so excited to come down here and do this show and get to talk to you guys today. I've done no podcast of my own for almost a month. I'm not seeing my friends outside of podcasting in person hardly at all, which I had been ill. But even before that, I became a little bit of a hermit last year, and that doesn't work good for me. I'm a fairly social person, and I really think that, like, I used to be a real bad kind of like electric communication product. I was anti-Facebook and this. I started TalkJunkie with the express intent of never using Facebook to promote or anything like, which I eventually ended up doing. But, I've got to the point to where, like, if it's a negative thing, it's because I can't control it. So I've got over that hurdle, but I also have got to a point where I kind of locked myself off a little bit and didn't make the effort to be out there as much physically as I was in the past. And that would be my biggest goal for the next year is actual interaction with people. Because even like this, no, we're not in the same room, but it's actually a discussion. Like, I can actually talk to you guys. It's not a message, and it's not a tweet, and there's nothing wrong with those, as much as I used to think there were. I can still use those to keep up with people, but
we need to go to Mammoth Cave.
Mammoth Cave is awesome.
It's unreal.
Love it. You will love it.
I went to Mammoth Cave as a kid, and you'll do these things as a kid. You'll experience something, you're like, wow, that's the greatest thing ever was. Like, there used to be this place down there, was it Ghost Town in the sky?
Yes.
It's like a gunfight thing. I was obsessed with cowboys. I actually got to go back and see something similar to that later, and it was fun, but it was, it is, you could tell the difference from when I was a kid to when I was an adult. But going in the cave when I was a kid, I thought that first cave, the big cathedral-like cave, I thought was the greatest thing ever. We went about 4 or 5 years ago and went back in, and I took my son and my daughter and my wife, and I felt the same way as an adult walking in there and seeing that place that I did as a kid. It's just breathtaking. Like, it's phenomenal.
And I know we're going to do what's the big flock gathering thing? Cookout, whatever.
Flock out.
A flock out.
Flock out 2022.
Involve the Here to Chew Bubblegum people, because we don't know how close some people might be, and we can all come together.
Now, see, I imagine that.
Let's get sides on the barn first.
I imagine that like Woodstock. I always wanted to go back in time to. If I could go back in time, I would want to go to Woodstock to just the party atmosphere. I expect Flock Out 2022 to be Woodstock.
We need sides on the barn first,
okay,
and my pasture set up, and then we need to get the animals here. There's a process, but yes.
I love animals. They're delicious.
Me too.
But Justin, to touch on your horse topic, I talk about this quite frequently, actually, and I've found that throughout this journey, and when I'm speaking about things and learning new things, it always brings me back to horses. Like either the way that I learn about horses, or like interacting with them, or teaching, like it falls right in line with that spiritual journey, with that information, with that understanding, with that groundedness. Like it's so directly connected for me anyway with horses. Like I always am able to bring it back there.
I can have, and like I look at my dad. My dad's one of those guys that can take an animal that nobody's ever had any contact with, and they can get a communication, and and maybe more of a dangerous path for him than I take. I'm more of a groundwork guy. He's more of a just kind of learn at the same time together guy. But I look at the way he encounters a horse versus the way I do. It's two completely different ways, but I think we both get the same reward out of it. Like it's a lot slower process with me. Take a miniature pony. Like there's no, I'm not going to ride this thing. I'm not going to, do anything physical with it, but the encounter with it when they're first born, imprinting them on you, petting them, just having that relationship with that animal for whatever reason, and I can't explain it. And I don't know if it's just a love I was born with when I was younger with them, but I love my dog, and me and my dog are close. Love my cats, and me and my cats are close. But, there's been one or two horses I've had over time that they felt like friends, and that horse can't talk to me, I can't talk to it, but the communication that we have just on more of a physical level, the way it moves in response to my movements, or I move in response to its, like it is a special thing. It's something that I always wondered, like, because I assume that I am a little bit crazy. Like, is that just something that I make up in my head, or do other people really feel that same impact?
As I'm getting yelled at by my cat.
Yeah, they are. I had a dog named Ripley. She was a Pomeranian, the smartest dog I have ever met and fooled with and saw my whole entire life. I mean, you could tell her to get a toy, she would get a toy. She loved cheese. You could hold cheese in front of her, and she would not get it until you said, okay, now you can have it. And she would come and take it, out of your hand. Very, very intelligent dog. Love that dog. As for me, 2022, my goal is what it was in 2021. I want to be the best person I can be every day. I want to help people that I'm able to help, and I want to help people think for themselves more. And that's pretty much it. And if you guys are ready, we'll move on and start out with some email. We have some really good email this week. And Rebecca, the last one that I sent you guys is from our regular. If you want to not read that, we can let Justin read it since he's in the studio. Justin may like to do that.
I did send Justin the poem that was written for him to read.
I've not seen it yet.
And through the messenger, but I don't know if he'd have to lose his camera.
Yeah, I'd have to.
Well, we can. I can. If Rebecca wants to start out with email, I could. You remember what episode that was? I can look back really quick.
Oh, was it the one that you guys recorded the other day?
Yeah, it was Bowling Cox point.
Do y'all not realize I listen every single Sunday when it up? Yeah, I've done heard that.
Okay.
I don't miss episodes. I don't know what world you all live in. The minute it's up, I listen.
So
you can't do anything while I'm alive.
What was your question about that, Dirty Dan?
What do you want? The poem?
It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I heard that. Oh, most definitely, I heard that. Yeah.
Because Goose gave me hell for not singing it, but I was like, it's it was designed for Mr. Perkins to read.
Well, you still should have sung it or
I agree.
talked like a woman.
Broke the rules.
Yes,
I agree.
I'm not a singer either, Dan. So I can side with you on that. I don't do a whole lot of singing.
I told him if he would have provided some sort of background track, I would have given it my
bullshit. You did not say that.
I did.
No, you did not.
Go back and listen in the episode.
I could have gave you a background track.
Go back and listen in the episode.
Okay. Rebecca, you can start off with this week's email whenever you're ready.
Mothership, is that what I'm reading?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Happy New Year to all of our Star family. I will start my new year with this beautiful message to you. I truly appreciate having this show, the hosts, listeners, and everyone on Mother Earth. You have opened many doors for me to get to be with my people that are like-minded and who shares the same passion for disclosure and the truth to be told. The truth will always set you free, and to say that has a lot of meaning behind it. So this year, I will push my limits and make a breakthrough for recognition of Here to Chew Bubblegum. It so rightly deserves. My goal is to make more people aware and have the listening audience grow. I am going to do more research on time travel. So if you want to embark on this journey with me, let us get this started by supporting Goose, Rebecca, and Dirty Dan as they start spreading the word. Roswell, my Star family, I hope the new year brings many blessings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mothership. That was a great email to start off with.
I can only imagine like the scene from Blues Brothers. Hang on.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, they do that in Blues Brothers a lot. Tell you to hang on 1 second. I have to give him hell, man. I have to give him a hard time. So, but that email, when I saw that earlier in the week, I mean, I got, that made me feel good to read that because I actually read it like twice. I read it and then I reread it and I thought, that's really sweet. That is really nice.
Yeah, I'm recruiting the wrong type of listeners because that's not the type of emails I get.
I still have yet to get any hate mail from when we did the episode on your show, Justin.
Well, I can send you plenty from me. Nobody complained about you, but I can send you plenty from me.
I mean, and honestly, I mean, there has been a handful of, and it's not necessarily been hate. Well, one or two's been hate mail, but I mean, it's not that much.
But one was retracted. One apologized.
Yes.
Redacted.
I don't get a ton of mail to begin with, and a lot of mine, I think, even the stuff that's more nitpicky is more designed to be funny because I do ask for it a lot. So like I don't have an issue with it, but there are some that I get a pretty hard hit and then they're never going to listen again, and then I'll address it and they listen again, and so I had
only if you read it in the beginning of the show, not at the end.
That's what I was about to mention. I had even I spoke to different podcasters, Goose, Eli, a lot of different guys about where to put those. And to me, kind of for what I do, I think it's more like you guys. I think it fits better at the beginning, but I have thought about trying it at the end, but it's just pure spite for that one person that I've not put it at the end yet.
We're going to step away and take a break, and we'll be back with some more of my favorite Justin Perkins moments on the Here to Chew Bubblegum show.
Hey everybody, it's John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. I have a new podcast entitled Beyond the Paranormal, which is on every Tuesday night on Beyond the Paranormal YouTube page, and we'll be streaming shortly on our Facebook page as well. If you want some information on the paranormal and cryptids such as UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, come and check out Beyond the Paranormal every Tuesday on Beyond the Paranormal podcast YouTube site, and also soon on our Facebook page. Keep checking back, folks. We're going to have a lot of great guests, a lot of great information. Have a good one.
Into our unique sauce containers. Do it 1 finger at a time.
Yum.
2 fingers.
Okay.
And then, if everybody's cool with it, work up to 3.
No, 2's good. Now.
I'll take what I can get.
If my friends aren't around, I'll just finger blast myself.
Nice! Nice!
Nice! Food prude. So 2 sauces at once.
That's a shocker. Finger blasting is the best.
Take a lighter look into the darker side of the world. Join Elliot, Gertie, and Beagle as they jump into the dark abyss of hauntings, fables, UFOs, and beyond. The Spooky Family Podcast. You can find them where you listen to quality podcasts.
I'm waking up, I feel it in my bones, enough to make my systems blow. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Whoa, whoa, oh, whoa, whoa. I'm radioactive, radioactive. Whoa, whoa, oh, whoa, whoa. I'm radioactive, radioactive.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. If Abraham Lincoln were alive, he'd listen, but he's dead.
Moving right along, this next clip is from the Here to Chew Bubblegum radio show. It was from episode 26, and it aired during the week of September 13th, 2021 on several FM radio stations that you could hear Here to Chew Bubblegum on the radio.
Recording this episode from the new permanent Here to Chew Bubblegum studios from the heart of Appalachia, located under a shopping mall near the city that moved mountains. And we have a special guest in the studio with us, Mr. Justin Perkins of TalkJunkie.
Good to be here with you guys today.
Justin, thank you very much for being here. Justin was part of our roundtable. Justin, what's your thoughts on the roundtable?
That's definitely one of the most informative and one of the best discussions I think I've ever been in. I got to meet some really nice new people today, and I had a blast. I mean, it's one of the best podcasts I've been involved in. I really, really enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much. And I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Dirty Dan, what was your takeaway from it?
Oh man, everything Justin said tenfold. It was awesome to have not just Justin on the show finally with me, but DJ Nikki back and Rebecca. And then also Oren and Sonia to join. Everybody comes from a little bit different background together. That was just, whoo.
Yes. And we will have, or up as of now on our YouTube page, will be this week. We've done it a little bit differently. The part one of the episode is up on the YouTube page, but it is also a video episode, yes. Which, we had recorded it on Zoom. In part one, there is a little bit of interruption because we had a storm move through and wipe out the internet, but we got that took care of. The fine folks at AT&T took care of that for us. Part two, hitchless. I mean, there was no hiccups, there was no hitches. And hopefully we've got a good sound today. I think we do. I'm really excited about it.
So am I.
So we're going to. You will be hearing clips from both episodes throughout the show. Don't forget, you can find this on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor, just anywhere you find quality podcast.
Here to chewbubblegum.com.
Yes. We're going to start out. Do you have just some of your stories from last week that we didn't get to that you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so I have one pulled up in front of me right now.
All right. Well, read that to us and talk about it. Me and Justin will jump in and give our thoughts on it.
So the story is titled UFOs Regularly Spotted in Restricted U.S. Airspaces. It's from an actual quote-unquote reputable news site, and it's actually a pretty well unbiased story. So earlier this summer, the Director of National Intelligence and Secretary of Defense released a highly anticipated unclassified report about something the Pentagon calls Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAP, more commonly known as UFOs. The government's grudging acknowledgement of 144 mysterious sightings documented by our military comes after decades of public denial. But as we first reported in May, whatever is trespassing in our skies and seas poses a serious safety risk to our servicemen and women as well as our national security. Bill Whitaker, said, so what you are telling me is that UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, are real. Lou Elizondo says, Bill, I think we're beyond that already. The government has already stated for the record that they're real, and I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that. Lewis spent 20 years running in military intelligence operations worldwide, in Afghanistan, the Middle East, all over Guantanamo. He hadn't given UFOs a second thought until 2008, and that's when he was asked to join something at the Pentagon called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, or ATIP. Lou then said, the mission of ATIP was quite simple. It was to collect and analyze information involving anomalous aerial vehicles, what I guess in the vernacular you call them UFOs, or as we say, UAPs. Bill replied, you know how this sounds. It sounds nutty or wacky. Lou then says, look, Bill, I'm not telling you that it doesn't sound wacky. What I'm telling you is that it's real. The question is, what is it? What are they? What are their intentions? What are the capabilities that they have? How can we identify them not posing a threat? Buried away in the Pentagon, ATIP was part of a $22 million program sponsored by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid to investigate UFOs. When Elizondo took over in 2010, he focused on the national security implications of UAPs documented by U.S. service members. That is much like the Antarctica account that I told you about of the flight engineer looking out and the pilot turning around saying, buddy, they're not ours.
Yeah.
Lou goes on to say, imagine the technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces. They can fly at 13,000 miles an hour. They can even evade radar, and they can fly through air, water, and possibly space. And, oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet can still defy all of the natural effects of Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing. Elizondo tells us that ATIP was a loose-knit mix of scientists, electro-optical engineers, avionics and intelligence experts, often working part-time in addition to their regular full-time gigs. They combed through data and records and analyzed videos like the one that was attached to this article. A Navy aircrew struggled to lock onto a fast-moving object off the U.S. Atlantic coast in 2015. And recently released images may not convince UFO skeptics, but the Pentagon admits it doesn't know what in the world this isn't or is. Bill Whitaker then asked, so what do you say to the skeptics? It's refracted light, weather balloons, a rocket being launched, Venus, what? Lou then responded, in some cases, there are simple explanations for what people are witnessing, but there are some that are not. We're not going to simply just jump to a conclusion that's saying, oh, that's a UAP out there. They're doing their due diligence. It's some sort of new type of cruise missile technology. Is it something that China developed? Is it some sort of high-altitude balloon that's conducting reconnaissance? Ultimately, when you have exhausted all of those what-ifs, you're still left with the fact that it is in our airspace, and it is a real thing, and that's when it becomes compelling, because that's when it becomes problematic. Former Navy pilot Ryan Graves calls whatever is out there a security risk. He told his FA-18 F Squadron began seeing UAPs hovering over restricted airspace southeast of Virginia Beach in 2014 when they updated their jet's radar. So it made it possible for them to zero in with infrared targeting cameras, and they had no idea what they were. And they were much more maneuverable than their own aircrafts, but they didn't know how to react when encountering one. Bill goes on to ask, or say, so you're seeing it both with radar and infrared, and that tells you that there's something out there. And Ryan stated to him, it's pretty hard to spoof that. Heat signatures don't lie. The photographs were taken in 2019 in the same area, also attached to the article. The Pentagon confirms that these images of objects are unidentifiable. They have no idea what they are. Lieutenant Graves told us pilots training off the Atlantic coast are seeing things like that more and more all the time. Every day for at least a couple of years. And Bill says, wait a minute, every day for a couple of years? And Lieutenant Graves just simply replied, uh-huh. He goes on to say, I didn't see an exhaust plume either. I saw no heat trace other than the object, including this one, which I will hold up to the screen for you real quick to see.
Oh yeah, that's
see
the famous one.
You just see the heat signature of the actual object itself, nothing coming off it, which was taken off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida in 2015, and it was targeted on Graves' camera while he was in flight with his squadron. There are sound bites from the pilots that are saying, "Look at this thing, it's rotating, my gosh." They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude. Like, they're in disbelief of what they're actually seeing in front of them. Bill asks them, you can sort of hear the surprise in their voices then. And Lieutenant Graves said, you absolutely can. They seem to have broke character a bit and were just kind of amazed at what they were seeing, so much that it became a safety distraction. Bill Whitaker then asked, what do you think when you see something like this? And Lieutenant Graves kind of struggled to answer it. He said, this is a difficult one to explain. You have rotation. You have high altitudes and extreme altitude changes. You have propulsion, right? I don't know. I don't know what it is, quite frankly. He told us that pilots speculate that they're one of three things: secret U.S. technology, an adversary spy vehicle, but more than likely it's something otherworldly, he calls it. He says, the highest probability it's a threat observation right now. Just because, as he previously stated, they don't know how they're going to react, how they're going to maneuver. So Bill said, could it be Russian or Chinese technology? And Ryan said, I don't see why not. He was asked if he was alarmed, and he said, I am worried, frankly. If these were tactical jets from another country, they'd be hanging out up there. It would be a massive issue. But it's not that. It looks completely different. We're not willing to actually look at the problem in the face. We're just happy to ignore the fact that they're out there watching us every day, and we go on. The government has ignored it, at least publicly, since closing the Project Blue Book investigation in 1969. But that began to change after an incident off Southern California in 2004, which was documented, again, by radar, like we talked about in the Roundtable episode with Ronald Reagan. And it was also documented by camera and 4 naval aviators. We spoke to 2 of them, David Fravor, a graduate of the Top Gun Naval Flight School and commander of the FA-18 Squadron on the USS Nimitz, and flying at his wing, Lieutenant Alex Dietrich, who has never spoken publicly about the encounter until now. Alex is then quoted saying, I never wanted to be on national TV, no offense. I don't blame him. Bill asks, so why are you doing this? And Alex says, because I was in a government aircraft on the clock, and I feel a responsibility to share what I can, and it's unclassified. It was November 2004, and the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was training about 100 miles southwest of San Diego. For a week, the advanced new radar on a nearby ship, the USS Princeton, had detected what operators were calling multiple anomalous aerial vehicles over the horizon, descending 80,000 feet in less than 1 second. On November 14th, Fravor and Dietrich, each with a weapons system officer in the backseat, were diverted to investigate. They found an area of roiling whitewater the size of a 737 in an otherwise completely calm blue sea. Fravor said, so we're looking at this. Her backseater says, hey, Skipper, do you, and about that go out, I said, dude, do you see that thing down there? And what we saw was this little white tic-tac looking object, and it's just kind of moving above the whitewater area, creating those ripples. As Dietrich circled above, Fravor went in for a closer look. Yep, that's a tic-tac, still pointing north-south, it goes, click, and just turns abruptly and starts mirroring me. So as I'm coming down, it starts coming up. He was asked, so you're mimicking your move? So it's mimicking your moves. And Fravor says, yeah, it was aware we were there. He said it was about the size of his F-18, which worried him, and with no markings, no wings, and no exhaust plumes. Just a massive ripple on the ocean below. Fravor said, I wanted to see how close I can get. So I go like this, and it's climbing still. And when it gets right in front of me, it just disappears. Disappears? He says disappears, like completely gone. It had sped off. Not active camouflage, not cloaking. It literally just disappeared.
Now, and this is the video that they released last April, correct? The one with the picture
yes,
you showed me.
But the article was transcribed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. What was your?
What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I was going to ask Justin. What was your thoughts on that when they came last year in April and they released this video?
Well, first, when speaking on regards of Elizondo, Harry Reid was such a big deal in the UFO community, and, he can't do it forever. If they don't come out and try to discredit Elizondo for some reason, I look for him taking over that role. But the Fravor footage, the Tic Tac footage, is the first footage I ever seen where I looked at it and said, I don't see, and I may not have seen a full clip, I don't see the defined physics aspect of it, but I see something that is most definitely not supposed to be there doing what it's doing in the way that it's doing it. And that's the first time the government ever released something that I got excited about, and I said, "This is it. They're going to let the cat out of the bag." And you can play devil's advocate. All right, it's where it should be. If it is enemy craft, which I don't believe is even remotely possible. I mean, yeah, they've proven they can't keep up. Or if it's our own, it's where it should be. It's around military installations. It's in restricted airspace. But if you're going to be honest, that's exactly where it should be if it's not of this earth, because no matter what their reason for visiting is, the first thing is look at the threat. I mean, look at the gentleman that come off the boat and went to that tribe that had never been exposed to, to Westerners and was shot with arrows. And you want to know what you're going into. So you want to look for these war machines. You want to look for this restricted airspace. That's where you should see them if that's what it is. But that footage as long as well as the other one, that wasn't off the Nimitz, correct? The other one was off of the Nimitz. Yes. Those two are two of the best. To me, the best we've captured, as far as not necessarily showing the shape and all of that, but because you've got the infrared, you've got the gimbal and all that, it shows its pattern of movement and its ability to accelerate and really manipulate the space around it in a way that not only do we don't know that we have anything that can do that, but theoretically we've not really come up with a way that it's even possible to have anything that can do that.
Yeah. And not to mention that up until that point, one of the most modern notable naval pilots, Fravor, was one of the most advocate on there's no such thing as UAPs or UFOs.
Right.
And he was very public about that, constantly trying to disprove it. Anytime something would be leaked, because he had so much experience, he would do the research, put it out to present. Nope, it's this, it's this, it's this. It's not anything unexplainable. It's not extraterrestrial. UFOs don't exist. And he says that in an interview. I'm not a UFO guy. I've never believed him until that day.
And then he did. And what I think's fascinating about this is that, the government did release this, but this was after it had already leaked through the, to the stars. Jeremy Corbell and to the Stars Academy. And this is, and they said they don't know what it is. I think they pretty much said that in 1952 when you had the unidentified objects over the White House.
Yeah. But the thing now is we're getting to an age where documentation and evidence and footage is getting so much easier to obtain that the weather balloon and the swamp gas, that's not going to hold up anymore.
No.
It's not going to pacify people, because here it is. Not just, this is a situation where, okay, you've got two pilots, highly decorated, good pilots, know their job. They know avionics. They know what's happening. Not only did they see it, and, you can go by their story and their account, but they've got video to back it up.
Yeah.
You
they
can't
have
say
actual
that
gun
about
camera footage. They have radar footage. There's all of that to back their account up. And to me, it's, when we've been asked and we've talked about sometimes, what makes you think that there's something else out there, or how would we know there's something else out there? It's because the people who are publicly advocating the most, that are on the good side, are presented with something they cannot any longer deny.
The thing
this case just like this.
The thing that Commander Fravor said that really stuck with me the most is, he said out of the whole incident, there was things that amazed him, there was things that he couldn't explain, but the thing that worried him the most is it actively jammed his weapon system. It wasn't something he could override. It wasn't something he could do anything about. It moving at that speed and its ability to move, you're not engaging it manually. You don't have the ability to follow it manually, so you have to depend on that targeting system. And it's not an issue for this craft because it can just jam it. And, you know, that's an act of war.
Yeah.
Technically, he has the right at that point to engage.
Yes.
How do you engage?
It also diverted his course. It put him on autopilot.
So send him totally somewhere else.
You know, that's something, there's no way you're going to sit down and convince me that, you know, say whether it be Russia, China, that they've got to the point that they can override. I mean, literally, these jets, and I've heard about this for months now, these jets that the Chinese are raving about, their new stealth jets, they are just a complete and total knockoff of our lower-end jets. Yes, and they're not even building them for their own defense. They're building them to sell to countries who can't afford our surplus jets because we don't sell them outside of Israel. We don't sell them very many places.
They were able to get a hold of one of our wrecked F-16s, and they literally, it looks identical. It's like 6 inches longer, and that's about the only major physical difference of this plane. It's got a very similar propulsion spec. It's got a very similar weight spec. It's got a very similar capacity, and everything about it says it's an F-16, just a China knockoff for a little cheaper.
And at one point, they were promoting it that way as a clone.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, they steal technology at every turn, so they're not above it. But they were very open that it was a clone.
And the thing that also solidifies, obviously, I was a believer anyway, but that it's not Russian or Chinese, is that we were the first people to come up with what they call the LRAD, which is a very accurate sound machine that is used to, it projects a very, very obnoxiously loud frequency, which can be changed, you know, change pitches, add something. It can cause electronic malfunctions. It will literally make someone's eardrums pop and burst out of their ears. We were the first to do that. And that only came about just a few years before this sighting. So if we were only up to a little sound frequency, anyone else can have something produced that can not only jam a weapon system, which is the act of war, but also take over the avionics for a few seconds to change their course no matter what's happening, and then suddenly it goes back to normal.
You know, I've got an idea, and I don't know this right, on why this was released when it was released. At the point that this was released, the U.S. knew the checkmate was coming, the new Russian aircraft. Now, if this is American technology, and it's not to say, you know, well, maybe we got it from somewhere else. If it is our technology, maybe that's the American government's way without showing so much that they get to see this and get some information from it, but it's their way of saying, nice try, but that's not checkmate. Or if it is something of another world, maybe wanting Russia to believe that this is ours and you're not to the level you think you're at.
Well, but if they were going to do that, wouldn't they put it out years before?
I think they're very reluctant to put it out. I'm saying this, and this is the first time in my adult life I've ever said this. I do not honestly believe that what they're showing, if it's legitimate, and I feel that it is, I don't feel that footage was doctored. If it's legitimate, I do not believe they either A, own it as the United States government, or B, were able to develop it on their own as the United States government. Because in that roundtable, we talked about a lot of planes, you know, TR-3B, the Aurora project, you know, we talked about the Black Manta, all this. Even the Black Manta, if you look at the specs on it and what it can do, there's nothing in there to say that it can actually move and maneuver the way that this craft does. It's a
forward propulsion-based system.
This craft is a purely science fiction ideal up until this point when you get documented evidence of it. And at that point, there's really only two options. Either this thing exists and we're understanding this footage correctly, or they manipulated this footage and this is some type of smoke screen. But if they are manipulating the footage, they went about it in a way and in a manner that wasn't the best option to do. They could take that Manta and just give a little bit of it, and just visually, because of the perception we have of UFOs in our mind, that would blow people's minds 1,000 times more. But, you know, I always kind of worked under this assumption, well, I know what a UFO looks like. You know, it's a disc. It's, you know, and this is what it does, and this is where it's from, and this is what it can do. You know, and even when I was younger, you know, and I had that, you know, kind of preconceived notion in my mind. But when you look at this Tic Tac, nothing about that screams UFO traditional appearance.
No.
But what it does is mind-blowingly fascinating.
But along with that, though, there's also that whole preconceived notion of this is what a UFO or a UAP is, no ifs, ands, or buts. And there's been many cases where it's been disproved otherwise. There's no set shape. There's no standard shape. How many of our U.S. secret projects have been failed and declassified because they're trying to mimic these other shapes and they just can't figure out how? You know? And then the thing that tells me this could not have been doctored is I doubt that whoever was in charge of leaking this or releasing this video would doctor it to fit a pilot's narrative that has not changed no matter what time of day, no matter where he's been, no matter when he's been asked, because Fravor came out and started losing his mind about this immediately, where his wingman Dietrich had not. But Fravor was very adamant about this because he wanted to know what the heck that was, because he had some serious concerns not only for his life, but for all of his other wingmen's lives out there, because they didn't know what the heck it was. And as a commander, that's very notable. That's very admirable of him, because he wasn't, it wasn't even about exposing something that was unknown. It was about making sure his team came home safe when they had to go out and experience that.
You hear that emotion in his voice when you've got the audio recording. You know, outside of Iceman, Goose, and Maverick, I've never seen any pilots that were real good actors. And, you know, that's a legitimate response. It feels legitimate. It feels honest. And they don't know what they're looking at. And if they don't know what they're looking at, you all probably don't know this, but I'm not an avionics specialist, and I've never flew a billion-dollar jet. There's no way I know what I'm looking at if they don't know what they're looking at. So the fact that it concerns them, it concerns me.
Especially someone who is that labeled, that decorated, and that experience with the thousands upon thousands of hours. I think he has the most amount, if not second most amount, of seat time in an F-18 flying it.
I think without that video coming out, he would have kept quiet, just out of the fear of the repercussion that so many other people have got for coming out.
But that's when your moral compass takes over, and he was more genuinely concerned about the safety of all of his crew and then himself over trying to keep something hush-hush.
Well, you know, if it was a U.S. government plane, I think when it was first recorded that it would have been told to people in the need to know, and that the footage would have been taken away, shelved or deleted, and we never would have saw it. Now, just because it wouldn't and the footage stayed there, to me, that screams, no, that is not one of our planes. And I don't think it is another country's plane.
Oh, I don't think it's even remotely possible.
And someone else, I had read some of the comments on the bottom of this article, and someone was like, oh, it's probably just a helicopter. You don't understand how rotor prop wash works, okay? It's not like an airplane, the older propeller-driven airplanes. You can see the backwash coming down in streaks and whatnot. A rotor is spinning in one direction, okay? And that force, you can watch helicopters on water, especially the Coast Guard videos, like when they're up in the Bering Sea and whatnot. You can see the distinction in the water because that wave goes around matching the force of the wind from that rotor.
Right.
I don't care how good you can doctor out shadows. It takes a heck of a lot of work. Okay, great. The shadow was made to fit the tic-tac. But you can't doctor out Mother Nature like that. And the water was still clear.
Well, outside of an Apache and maybe some Black Op chopper we don't know anything about, what chopper can maintain a speed and a handling that a jet can go slow enough to keep up with and interact with at that level? And the change of elevation. None. I've been in small helicopters. I've never been in a military helicopter.
I've had that luxury of being able to enjoy some of those at a rotor fest. And my father being high up in the military at one point, there's nothing with a rotor that can sustain forward-moving flight even close enough to that, or be able to match the elevation increase as an F-18 decreases elevation to investigate. There's nothing out there that can.
Yeah, the one in Rambo 2 couldn't outrun the bow and arrow. So, I mean, no, I don't. If you look at the one, but you were talking about deleting footage, if you look at the one from the Nimitz, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm not as familiar with this interview because I've only seen it one time, but they interviewed the guy that was in charge of the radar systems and all that.
Yeah,
and
the communications.
Yeah,
standard.
that was supposed to be deleted. It was because he didn't get to delete it, or it got slipped by, and he held on to it. That's why it got out. You know, that they were intending to delete that. They didn't want anybody to know about that.
And unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for us, it wasn't along with this. So those 2 videos alone, anyone who is a skeptic or a non-believer, look at the circumstances and the people involved and listen to the raw emotion. Like you said, Justin, you can hear it in his voice. They are genuinely concerned because no one has a blessed freaking clue what that is that they're encountering.
Well, you know, in the Nimitz, I don't think they felt as threatened with it, but if you go back and listen to the audio on because they had cell phone footage from the Nimitz, there was people that got it, they're astonished at this. They're genuinely curious to what it is, and I would imagine, you know, there's definitely going to be some veterans on there, but there's also a lot of people on there who have a lot of experience around military hardware. You're not going to be amazed by a drone, because I seen this thing that was just somebody flying a drone. You're not going to be amazed by a drone.
No.
I mean, if you've seen a Predator drone, you're not going to be amazed by some, you know, I've seen a drone with Snoopy on it. It's Snoopy's house and the little Snoopy. Like, I've seen that drone. That would amaze me, but I wouldn't look at it and go, I wonder if that's from another planet. You know, I wouldn't look at it and go, is that a threat? These people were genuinely concerned by these objects, and they do. You know, somebody brought up that in a question a minute. Well, this is just a drone. Well, they may all be drones. You know, we don't know that. We're not sure that they're all manned, whatever they are. Well, the U.S. To me, if the government owns that aircraft that Commander Fravor saw, it's definitely unmanned. But if you take them out of the equation, it easily could be, I don't know if you call it manned or occupied. Whatever.
Right, definitely. Do you have anything else to add there, Dirty Dan?
Yeah, on the back of that, even if it was a U.S.-owned unmanned aircraft, eventually, Fravor would have had to have been debriefed.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And that would have probably changed his likelihood of coming out and speaking about it.
Right. There's been no debriefing, and anyone who knows any military, especially the Top Gun school or any of that, if there's no debriefing, it's because it's not planned.
It didn't happen,
even
so to speak.
when it's unplanned, there are debriefings.
Yeah. Well,
and there's still no debriefing.
I have asked this, and it's been a while. I'm going to start with Justin and ask him, because he's our special guest. Do you think the government will ever come clean within the next 5 years and say UFOs or aliens do exist, we've been in contact with them, here's what we know?
It's a complicated answer, because do I think so? Yes. But I don't think it will be for the right reasons, and I don't think it'll be – I think we need a war, especially right now, and we've talked about this privately and on the podcast. I think, you know, what Reagan said was probably one of the truest statements ever. You know, it takes something outside of this world to unite us, and not just that, you know, pulling out of Afghanistan, and, you know, it's getting harder to find reasons for war, and it's getting harder to justify these just black pits of money we're putting into these other countries. But if maybe not an attack, if just an existence is confirmed and it can make people afraid enough, and I really think that's why all this stuff came out. It was, let's try to spread the fear a little bit, and let's drop all this black budget money into Space Force and these various projects, and let's just get our funding a different way. That's not to say I don't think there's a possibility of there being intelligent life coming. I just think if they disclose it in the next 5 years, that'll be why. I think if we ever find out that there's real intelligent life out there and coming to this planet, I think it'll be because that group decides to make a contact that they can't hide. I don't believe they'll ever tell us that and be honest about
right.
it.
Well, you know, and you said something there like a war, like an alien war, and, you know, I think they do have the technology to do the Project Blue Beam, which would be a fake alien attack somewhere.
I mean, absolutely along with that. And I just based on, like, a case like Fravor's, I firmly believe that if they were going to quote-unquote attack us, it wouldn't be much of an attack unless they actually wanted control or complete resource harvesting of something here. I'm pretty sure it can just, you know, be like the Maldeck thing and just boom, we're gone. That's it. And we wouldn't know any different. Because Because if it was able to be happen then and stuff traced back to then, what's the difference between thousands of years later?
Well, that's a quote I heard from one of the thousands of YouTube black holes I went down that I just can't remember. But there was a gentleman, and he didn't particularly, I don't guess, professed his belief in alien life, but he said, if they're coming, why would they come to attack us? He said, we're not to the point that we can go to another planet yet. He said, and the reason we're not is because our goal is to be able to go to another planet and attack. He said, you kind of got to separate the two. Exploration and scientific discovery doesn't work real well with militarization. And, if they've advanced that far, they're probably past the point, and they probably realize, technology-wise, we don't stand a whole lot of chance. So there's no glory in the victory for them. So, I don't see it as them, and that could be what's holding us back from being that species that makes it first. Because what if that is ours, and what if we're going to be the actual aliens for some other planet, and we're going to be the first people to come? We kind of got to get past that point. It don't need a bigger gun. It needs a better engine, and a lot more money's being put into the bigger gun than being put into the bigger engine.
That makes sense, and I've never thought about it that way. What's your take on what he just said, Dirty Dan?
I mean, I completely agree. Anytime someone comes to me to build a truck or what they want to do for a build, they're always like this, that, and the third for programmers and throwing fuel and air into an engine. I'm like, that's great, but how's your transmission? How's your transfer case? How's the rest of your driveline, your rear end, your gear set? You got to build up that machine first to take what you want to throw at it before you throw it at it, because otherwise you're just going to have a whole lot of cuss words, a whole lot of wasted time, and I'm just going to be going there, I told you so. You have to, again, you have to build up what you're using, the vessel you're using to go before you try and go. And I don't think that, I honestly don't think in 5 years that we're going to know, even for the wrong reason. I think it's going to be much longer, because if you look, history just repeats itself. And now that the excuses that they used to use 50, 60, 70 years ago are running out and people don't believe it, they're shifting it. And it's just going to be a continual pattern until something is able to abruptly stop it. And there's no choice but to either run away, step down, run away, disappear, or just tell the freaking truth.
Yeah.
No redactions, no hiding, no altering. What you see is what you get, because everybody's seeing it and they just want to know what we're getting.
I think they may have overplayed their hand a little bit too, because, I think the anticipated reaction to this was a mass media just, blitz and everybody going crazy over this and that. And that's not what happened, and it didn't get because there was so much else going on. If it was to serve a distraction of those things, it didn't work, and if it was to get the attention they needed to get a bigger budget for, Space Force or something like that, that didn't work, because I think people, one, are very untrusting of the government and anything they say, and two, it just come out at a bad time when there was so much else going on in the world. It still should have astonished people. It astonished me, but I don't think a lot of people paid a whole lot of attention to it, and that's, that may force them to do a little more, expose a little more.
And you know what, Goose? In 5 to 10 years, what I want to know is what happened to all that money they were looking for that we were supposed to find out on September 11th.
Yeah, well, you're not going to find anything about that. Now, and you said you didn't think it would happen in 5 years, and I can understand why you say that. If stuff happens and it changes like we think that it might, and we're going to take a break here shortly, Justin, because I know you're on a time crunch. It may be sooner than 5 years. It may be 3 years. It could be any.
I agree with that. But
3 to 5 years.
I don't think it's going to happen until that, whatever it may be, abruptly forces that to happen.
Right.
I agree with that to some degree. I think that extraterrestrial life is going to have to initiate that contact, because, if you've got a king and he's got all of his people within inside of a wall, and there's something outside of that wall he can't control, he can't be king of that outside of that wall, then the easiest thing to do is keep those people inside that wall.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Justin, thank you for being here. We're going to take a short break, Dirty Dan, and we're going to play a preview of episode 45. We're going to end a preview of episode 46. And then we'll be back to wrap things up. Again, Justin Perkins of TalkJunkie was our special guest on this episode of Here to Chew Bubblegum. Be sure to check out TalkJunkie. You're also an author. Tell us where we can find your books and stuff at, Justin.
The two poetry books, Everyone is Different. Oh, no, that's the wrong book. The two poetry books, Co-Kingdom and Creating the Perfect Slaves, are available at the Red Spotted Newt, READ, Red Spotted Newt in Hazard, Kentucky. You can get up to them on Facebook. I far and away prefer you get them from there. It's cheaper. It's helping out a local business. If you can't, for some reason, or she's out of stock, you can get them on Amazon. They are available for Amazon Prime free direct shipping. Also did 2 books with my son. They're just little projects he and I worked on together that are available on Amazon. She may have a couple copies at the Newt. It's called, the first one's called Everyone is Different, Just Like Me, and the second one's called The Boy with Super Hearing. He gets a big kick out of people getting those books. But the biggest thing is, on anything, the podcast, the YouTube page, the books, anything, like, subscribe, and share, leave reviews, whatever you can, because that helps us as podcasters, definitely helps me as an author.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in this week. We're going to close out the show. And again, I hope you've enjoyed episode 73 of Here to Chew Bubblegum. Again, this show featured Justin Perkins. Justin is the author of Co-Kingdom, Creating the Perfect Slave, The Boy with Super Hearing, and Everyone is Different, Just Like Me, again, which he co-written with his son, Ryder Perkins. You can pick up those books at redspottednewt.com. That's redspottednewt.com or amazon.com. Don't forget, you can always call, text, or leave a voicemail by calling 606-373-3396, or you can email me, Goose, at heretochewbubblegum.com, Dirty Dan at heretochewbubblegum.com, Rebecca at heretochewbubblegum.com. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in this week. Next week on the show, you'll hear some of Dirty Dan and Rebecca's favorite moments from Here to Chew Bubblegum. Have a good week, help someone if you're able to, and as always, pay it forward. Until next week, this is Goose reminding you, when you find no solution to a problem, it's probably not a problem to be solved, but rather a truth to be accepted.
Thanks for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.